conditioning near me. So your air conditioner is not working like it should. It's either blowing not cold enough, or it's not blowing cold enough at all, or it's just blowing out the same temperature as outside as inside. Um, the weird part about air conditioning is that even during the winter, if you run your defroster, your air conditioner works. And even during the winter, you should run your air conditioner at least once a week to keep the seals lubricated. So let's get into how the air conditioner, some of the components and what they're actually doing. So basically, what's happening is there's a liquid inside of your air conditioning system, and it converts from liquid to gas, and from gas back to liquid, and that's how you're getting cold. That's the phenomenon that actually gets cold. So you have a compressor, and the compressor is circulating the refrigerant, your so the refrigerant itself, it can be made up of a lot of different kinds of different refrigerants nowadays. So make sure that the shop that you're dealing with can handle some of the new refrigerants. Okay, so the compressor basically pressurizes and circulates the refrigerant. And, people say that it's the heart of the system. But to me, if any one of the pieces aren't working, it doesn't really matter. But, and you can have electrical issues with it. You can have internal issues with it. You can have electrical issues with it. The condenser is basically like a radiator. It's normally mounted in front of the radiator, and it converts the high pressure gas into a high pressure liquid. That's where it goes from the gas back into the liquid form. Okay. And you have to understand that, you have a receiver dryer or accumulator on the system, and that basically removes the moisture from the refrigerant, because moisture and refrigerant equals acid. We definitely don't need that. It also filters out the debris. And it has to be replaced if the system is opened or contaminated. The expansion valve of the orifice tube, it regulates the refrigerant flow into the evaporator, and it can clog or it can fail over time. The evaporator cools the air that enters your cabin. So basically, it's like a little mini radiator, just like the heater core. It's like a little mini radiator, a little mini condenser, but it's on the backside. So it's in your actual dash most of the time, and the fan goes behind it and it blows through your evaporator core. And the evaporator core is super cold, and that's how you feel the cold air. And of course, you have the blower motor that sits behind the evaporator core, and it's what's blowing the air into your vents. And of course, most cars have got a cabin air filter, just like the air filter in your house that needs to be replaced 2 or 3 times a year. The cabin air filter needs to be replaced at least once a year. And depends on your environment, could be even more than that. But it's outside. It's not inside. You're replacing your air filter inside your house a lot more often than you're replacing this thing. Your house is working all of the time. You're only driving your car part of the time. That's why. So you got to make sure that it's clean. So you could have warm air blowing from your vents. You could have weak or inconsistent airflow. You could have a bunch of strange noises, squeaks, grinds, bumps. You could have a musty or mildew mode, which means that you actually got mildew or mold growing in your evaporative case, which means you definitely need to get that bad boy cleaned out. Otherwise, you're just getting mildew or mold through your vents right in, and you're just breathing it. You can have water pooling inside your car, which means the evaporative case has been clogged, and you're no longer dropping the water, because if you see clear water underneath your car, it's probably not an alarm thing by any stretch, because just an air conditioner, depending on the humidity outside, can create a whole lot of water through condensation. And then you can actually have a check engine light or an AC light on, depending on your car. And that could be low refrigerant, no refrigerant, could be electrical failure, compressor issues, leaks in the system. you definitely need to get it checked out at that point. So when you bring it into an automotive repair shop, you're going to get the AC system diagnosed. So they're going to actually do a pressure test, visual inspection, leak detection, which means they normally have to put in dye, okay, or they can do an electronic. Um, I like to check with everything, and then performance check. So they'll be checking the way that the system is operating and how much the temperature is differentiated between outside and inside. So if you're going to get your refrigerant recharged, they're going to have to evacuate the old refrigerant. And that means they're sucking out all of the old stuff. They're going to have to pull a vacuum because moisture can't live in a vacuum. So that's why you have to vacuum the system. So when you're trying to ever do it yourself, if you don't pull a vacuum on it, you just left a lot of moisture in the system. And there you go. You're now creating a lot of acid in it, if it works at all. So, and you've got air in there. So, air isn't going to ever turn into liquid. And remember, you got liquid. You're going from gas to liquid and liquid to gas. So, and air is never going to turn into liquid. Another reason you need to vacuum the system. And then you're going to recharge to the factory specified level and then check for leaks before and after. Realize that not all leaks are visible because the leaks, you have a bunch of tubing that people can't see, and they manufacturers try and keep everything to where it's behind stuff. So just realize that not all leaks are easily found, and depending on how big the leak or how small the leak, some leaks are really, really hard to find. So, normally your automotive repair facility is not trying to mess with you or hurt your car or steal your money. You're just dealing with a something that may not be easily found even a little bit. So once you put a UV dye into the system, and then they can use a black light to try and find it. And of course, they're going to look at the main places to find it, the connections where the hoses connect to other things and all of that stuff. But remember, your evaporator core is in a case, and it's in your dash for the most part, and you can't see it. So it normally has to be leaking enough that you can actually see the dye coming out with the water. Think about that for a second, the condensation that's leaking out of your evaporative case. And then, of course, you have to replace the bad components, whether it be a compressor, a condenser, an expansion valve, orifice tube, blower motor, resistors, fuses, relays, your HVAC control module. Most of the time back in the old days when you were doing your, from hot to cold, you're actually moving a lever. Now it's all done electronically. So you're basically got so much wiring in there. It's not even funny. You have so many different sensors and so many different wires and so many different computers controlling this stuff nowadays. It's not even funny. And so air conditioning, I'm never going to recommend is a do-it-yourself. First off, you got to flush the system if it's been contaminated even a little bit. And the holes that are in this, that the refrigerant is trying to move through are so tiny to begin with, and they can become clogged so easily. It's not even funny. They're just got almost no tolerances nowadays. So that would mean that keep it in the hands of the professional, no matter what you do, right? So, some of the questions you can ask before approving any AC repairs, or before they even allow them to look at it is, do you perform a full AC diagnostic before adding refrigerant? Which there's no way to perform a full AC diagnostics before adding refrigerant if it's empty, because the system won't work. There's oil circulating with the refrigerant, and that's what keeps the compressor lubricated. So if there's no pressure, then the air conditioning compressor is not going to come on. It's designed that way. So it's a good question, but realize it depends on what's wrong with your vehicle, your air conditioning system, before they can actually do anything about it. Make sure that they're using, R134A or R, 1234 YF, depending on your car, because there's definitely different, and it used to be R12. So there's definitely different kinds of refrigerant nowadays. And depends on your manufacturer as to what they're using and how old it is. So, do your pressure test or vacuum the system before recharging, because that's critical. What kind of warranty on the parts and the labor? Um, do you replace the receiver dryer if the system is open? Because you have to. Anytime that you're trying to save money on air conditioning, probably going to end up costing you even more money. It's just the way it works. And of course, are they using dye, sniffer tools, a soap test? Because you can spray soap, and if it bubbles, that means there's a leak. But realize there's a lot of places you can't spray the soap. So it's a combination normally of UV dye, sniffer tool, which you put into the dash to see if you can catch a reading of the evaporator core leaking. Stuff like that. So it's the dye, it's sniffer, it's soap test. It's anything that we can do to find what's going on. You know, build a relationship with the shop. That's what you're supposed to do. Build a relationship with your shop, and then away we go. So again, don't do it yourself. This is definitely the time to get a professional involved. Whatever you do, air conditioning, if you live in one of those places where you have to have it, not all places do you have to, but I found that it's a have to more during the winter, because that's what dries out the moisture in your car so that your defroster works a lot more efficiently and effectively. So even if you live in a cold area, you need the air conditioner to work. Find a great repair shop. If you're watching this video, you can definitely know where to go.